Revolution.radio.
Galactic Interstellar Council on Revolution Radio Studio A, Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us as we traverse the starseed paradigm, as expressed in the time-space continuum that we know as the divine expression of love and light. Integrating this conscious unity into the galactic paradigm. So welcome all, both terrestrial beings and galactic beings as one. So be it. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Como va? This is Giuseppe from the District of Criminals. I pulled some strings and gotten you front row seats to my new show, The Perfect Triangle. Live, Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Revolution Radio Studio A. The perfect triangle is equilateral, three sides of the same length. In an angry, bipolar world, three perfect sides reveal many truths.
Body, mind, and spirit.
Thought, word, and deed.
Conspiracy, propaganda, and truth.
Natural health, allopathic tyranny, and your body.
Freedom, globalism, and sovereign nations.
And so much more. Each week, the Perfect Triangle will blast through fake news lies, champion the natural way and natural law, unravel the Orwellian deceptions of our corrupt government, reveal the satanic evil of globalist banks and transnational corporations. Tune in every Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, to Revolution Radio Studio A for thoughtful discussions with free thinkers. Your calls are always welcome. The Perfect Triangle with Giuseppe from the District of Criminals. Join me, won't you?
This is Revolution Radio. Studio B. Are you ready? Haunting spirits and stories both current and from days gone by. It's the Spectre Detective. With Christine Hart.
Hello, good evening. It's the Spectre Detective, Christine Hart, and welcome to a show tonight going out live across the a little bit behind us. Gosh. America and the fires over there. So I've got an interesting expert on kind of thing. If I can find him in the call list. Where are we? It is Mr. Jaimie Lee, but I am so untechy. It is unreal. Just about as untechy as a human being can be. And of course I can't find him. So isn't that fun? Let me go back and try and find him. It's just silly, isn't it, that I can't find him? Usually it's because people are listed under other things. Okay, I can't seem to. Everything's stuck. So okay, let me see if I can find him. I'm not finding him. This is weird. Let me look for him again. I don't know why this is happening. So he should have a little green light on, and he should be. There we are. I found him. He's not under his usual name. Oh, I've lost him again. That is so annoying. Please bear with me, and I will find him again. He is not. There he is. There. Mm-hmm. I click on that. I don't know why I keep losing him. Gosh, this is madness. It's not letting me. It's not letting me add my guest. Not letting me add him. Oh, hang on. It is. I hope so. Please bear with me one moment. Christine Hart, Spectre Detectives, with my guest, Jaimie Lee, who's an expert in the Californian fires. Hopefully he'll be coming on soon. Hello, James.
This is me.
Oh, good, I've got you. I'm so untechy that I can't see your bio now. You're going to have to introduce yourself to the audience. I'm so sorry. I'm so untechy and I just can't now flick the screen back to the text box. So annoying. Could you introduce yourself, James? Is it Jaimie or James?
I go by Jaimie.
Oh, you sound like Donald Trump.
Excuse me?
Sorry, I always think Americans sound like famous people. You've actually got the same kind of voice. Sorry.
Okay. I haven't heard that one before. That's a new one. So anyway.
Wow. Maybe you come from the same area. Where do you come from, James?
I'm in California, born and raised in California, Northern California.
Oh, right. And where was he born and raised?
Trump?
Yeah.
He was, New York, but they say his lineage comes from Germany, but his family lineage comes from Scotland. He's a Scottish Rite Freemason. And his father, his grandfather, which is really interesting, their original name was Drumpf, D-R-U-M-P-F. And his grandfather worked on naval radar and Wi-Fi and all that technology way back when, 100 years ago, and also was involved with Tesla.
Oh, right. Interesting.
Yeah.
And what is your story, Jaimie? Because I had my audience and my producer were very eager to have you on. So you've done an awful lot lately about the Californian fires. Can you tell me about yourself and the audience?
Sure. Can you give me just a background of what kind of audience I'm talking to, so I understand what I can speak to them about?
Yeah, well, they're mostly truthers, people that understand that there's something wrong. So not maybe advanced, but intermediate. But you can probably bring them into the advanced arena yourself.
Okay. Well, my story, quote unquote, goes back to being in business, working on Wall Street, New York Stock Exchange, sales trading, institutional trading, research analysis until 91, when I started my own investment banking company. And then I just started getting out of the industry when I saw how corrupt it was and how where this was heading. The capitalists capitalizing, and you don't stop when you get 50% of the wealth or 80% of the wealth. You only stop when you get all the wealth. That's the game. And so now we're seeing the top 1% control the game. You're seeing the FANG stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, all hitting record highs, up some what did I read? $540 billion in wealth created since this pandemic started, while small businesses, 80% of small businesses have gone out of business, and the entire country here in this country is basically on a welfare check. And so I started speaking out. I got out of the industry. I was told along 20 years ago that this event was going to be happening, where technology was going to take over the people, and the people were going to be controlled by the technology, and they're going to actually use the electronic medium for their servitude. And that's exactly what we're seeing today. So back in 2007, when they ran up the debt bubble with the mortgage prices and the home prices, I sold the real estate, got out of everything, and moved to the country to grow food. Because that was when, I don't know if you remember, when petrol prices got up in this country to $147 a barrel, and it was $6 a gallon. But that related to food was going to cause a major food shortage. And also the massive debt. We'd never been in that kind of debt since 2008. So anyway, I got out, got cashed out, moved to a ranch to grow food and give my son a place where he can grow food and know where stuff comes from, and also get away from Wi-Fi, get away from cell phones as much as I could. And then I started just using my research analysis to study the truth movement. I started with 9/11, with Loose Change, the movie, and Press for Truth, the ladies that did that. And that started me on the journey of discovery of an alternative. And then when I started applying what I had seen in Wall Street and what I had learned in Wall Street to what I was learning in the alternative media sources by just basically reading, I probably got over 4,000 books, and just learning and reading and downloading and thinking and putting dots together. I started a YouTube channel in 2009, and so now I've got four websites, 3 YouTube channels, Facebook page, just trying to share with everybody what I've learned. And as I've learned it, I've tried to share with others so they can get up to speed. So that's been, basically trying to shake the trees now since 2007. And it's really cool to see so many people waking up now. It's really inspiring. It takes their whole lifestyle to get upended to do it, but they're finally realizing that the world they thought they knew no longer exists. And so now, just like after 9/11, if you had an alternative story to submit to somebody about what happened in 9/11 before we were told it was the Osama bin Laden's, people would have believed that or been open to anything. And so I think they're open to alternative narratives now. So I'm getting a lot of requests to speak about directed energy weapons. And my story goes back to, I just finished a book called Paradise Lost, the Great San Francisco Fire Chronicle, or Great California Fire Chronicles. And you can read about what I wrote about the past 2 years of the record number of fires in California, and how the fires have no profiles that any fire captains, any fire department officials, any forensic fire people have known before. And they admit that. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen a fire like this. I've never seen it act this way. I've never seen so much heat. I've never seen cars flipped on their roofs. I've never seen one home torched and another home free while the trees didn't burn. I've never seen one area get hit another. I've never seen, and I list that in my book, all these quotes from all these fire captains, including Cal Fire Chief Ken Pimlott, who has admitted in the first fire that occurred on October 7th, 2017, I was down in Santa Rosa, and there was these big redwood trees outside where I was staying. And I've written a book called Geoengineering, aka Chemtrails, and maybe your audience has heard of geoengineering, but weather modification has been going on since the 1920s. I've got patents that I list in the book from the 1920s about aerosol spray management of the skies. So geoengineering is necessary around the world and is used around the world. And I don't know, Christine, if you're familiar with geoengineering, but they're able to modify the weather at will, make it rain, make it dry it out, use all different types of weather modification devices, because we've literally, for the past few decades, while burning all the coal tar ash into the sky, it is eliminated the abilities to make rain. Rain is made using cloud condensation nuclei. And so since the heavy coal tar ash that's been sprayed up in the skies from all our coal we burned over the past 100 years, it's too heavy a particulate matter, and we can't make rain. And so that's why you see all these what's called wet surface air coolers and Doppler radar, and they spray the skies with barium. And the barium is an aluminum, and the aluminum melds into the cloud structure, and the barium bonds the cloud condensation nuclei. And I'm sure you've seen in your areas these massive water vapors, these clouds that go up into the sky from nuclear plants, from just these big, huge fans. Well, those are water vapors. They're shooting up into the sky. to create the rain to connect with the barium, and then they use the aluminum in the clouds to steer them with those Doppler radars. You heard the Doppler radar, the golf ball radar machines you see. Those are used to steer weather. And so that's just one example. And then I also wrote I haven't written a book yet, but I have a 3-hour documentary called Touchless Torture, Target Humanity, where they use scalar waves in the sky. You see the waves in the sky, they look like waves. That's technology used for using mind control techniques, all sorts of nanotechnology. And nanotechnology is $1 trillion business. Nanoparticulate matter, nanotechnology, 1/88,000th of a hair width. And they can make little tiny computers. They can make anything they want. They can make self-replicating, these impossible meats you're seeing, all this impossible burgers. They're made from cloned cells, and cloning costs nothing. And so this fake meat costs the farm industries nothing. And so what are we seeing out here in California? And we just had snow in Colorado and Oklahoma right during growing season. In California and Fresno, the fires during growing season. We saw in Iowa last month 130, 40-mile-an-hour winds in Iowa took out the corn crops because they want to promote the Impossible Burger, the synthetic bio food that's made with nanoparticulate matter as part of the big agenda of their transhumanism. So the reason I'm giving you all this background, because the technology needs to be understood that we've said that Tesla's had free energy for 100 years. Where is it? Why don't we have it? How come, how come we can get all the music we want on our iPod? I used to have albums and, 8-track tapes and all that. And now we can get all the music we want on our little iPad, and we can download hundreds of gigabytes of terabytes on our computers, but we're still using the combustion engine, even though we've had free energy for 100 years, because it's all controlled of what they release to us and how they give it to us. So my background, when I was in Santa Rosa on October 7th, 2017, I do a daily chart of the weather, because the weather what they're doing and weather what they're saying are two completely different things. And I'm sure at your area too, when you look at the weather reports, they literally have nothing to do with how the real weather acts these days. It's been completely fabricated to the place where even the weather people can't even keep up with how much these microgrids, these areas where they can concentrate weather, they can concentrate energy. Excuse me. So that night on October 7th, I was in bed and I heard the redwood trees starting to sway. And these redwood trees are 100 feet tall, and it takes some good winds to move these. And there was no wind forecast for the day. So I walked outside about 10:30 at night, and I looked up, and there was these kind of clouds, and I saw these blue flashes underneath the clouds, like lighting up from below. And I'm like, oh gosh, new geoengineering, I'm gonna have to figure out what they're doing now. And I went back to bed. And then at about 4:30 in the morning, I hear banging on the door. My neighbor says they're evacuating us. The fires are coming. I'm like, what? And I go outside, and just at the very distance towards Napa, looking east, I could see an orange glow above the ridge, but no fires. So I drove out to the coast. Everybody went west, and then they lifted it. And I went back the next day, or that day. And I went to a couple areas that had the fires happen. And I was a mile and a half away from this incident in Fountain Grove in Santa Rosa. And here is these complete suburbs just torched. And they were torched down to the ground with this white phosphorus on the ground. I mean, iron tubs, porcelain, steel, melted, homes completely decimated. One home decimated, one home fine. There's trees that were left untouched next to houses. I mean, it was just, and I had seen this before, a year before, when a lady did a video about the Fort McMurray fires up in Canada, where the fracking goes on up in Alberta. There was a one-day fire turned into what they called the Beast Fire, which lasted 2.5 months. And it had the same profile, had windows blown out, cars flipped over, one house burned, one house not. And the lady's doing the whole temperature thing. She goes, it takes 2,500 degrees to break tempered glass in a car. And the hottest temperature ever recorded by a forest fire is 1,524 degrees. So how the heck, she's asking, were these homes decimated? Were these cars decimated? Were the rims on tires decimated and turned into liquid coolant? The temperatures had to be above 3,000 degrees. And there's never been a forest fire like that. So that was in my memory. So I went through the areas and I filmed it. And so I got back home and I called my buddy who's still in the Wall Street business. And because I'm not in the business, he can't share proprietary information anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But we have this game we play that don't ask, don't tell. And so I'll ask him questions, and if I'm right, he won't answer me, and if I'm wrong, he'll tell me I'm wrong. So I said, "Hey, Bob, it looks like we got hit with the and I used to cover Lockheed, Martin Marietta, and these defense contractors, so I knew about their equipment. And I said, looks like we got hit with the TR-3B lasers up here in Santa Rosa yesterday." And he goes, "No, it wasn't the Lockheed. It wasn't the TR-3B." And I said, "But it was the lasers, right, that hit us, because it looks like they just torched this house, left this one alone, just looked like they had zapped this, zapped that." And he didn't say a word. And I said, "Well, was it another defense contractor when it was another airplane, a defense contractor, laser?" And he said no. And I said, "So what was the delivery device if it wasn't these airplanes?" And he said to me, he says, "Jaimie, what did you get your son for Christmas last year?" I said, "I got him a drone." And I said, "Was it a drone?" And there was silence. So I started researching, and you can get on Lockheed Corporation's website, lockheed.com, and you look up directed energy, and they show directed energy weapons. It's in their prime pages, and they show a truck having a hole shot through it from the sky using a laser, which is exactly, Christine, what we saw down in the fires in Sonoma. And these fires in Sonoma, there was 170 fires that started that night in 9 different counties in Northern California. No wind profiles. The winds that night, they said, got up to 75 miles an hour. And by 9 a.m. the next morning, they were down to 5 miles an hour. There was no weather profiles. The same thing happened all over. And I went to a press conference, and Cal Chief Ken Pimblott was there, and he's talking about the fires. I said, "Sir, you said there's 170 fires in 9 different counties that night." He goes, "That's correct." I said, "It's a year and a half later, and you've only identified 13 of those fires and blamed on PG&E, our local power company, for down power lines. What was the cause of the rest of the fires?" He turns and he goes, "Next question, please." So that was the beginnings of what we learned was these attacks, and we have visual proof of the story is these embers got so hot they jumped 6-lane freeways, Highway 101, and torched a 100,000 square foot Kmart down to its guts, but left the building intact. The trees outside, the Arby's next door is fine, the gas station next door is fine. I mean, it was selective targeting. And what I've learned since then was they can target from the air and they can target underground. There's things called underground lightning. And so that was 2017. And then in November 8th, 2018, the town of Paradise up in Butte County in the Sierra foothills towards Lake Tahoe was attacked by the same kind of energy weapons. And we have it on video of them shooting a big laser across the state from Port Conception, from the coast where they get the energy from the ground, and they shot it into the sky. And we have actual pictures. I got pictures from people that were actually there in Paradise with laser beams showing coming down to and hitting buildings. So the reason we can see think about this, Christine. If you can go to we have 7-Elevens here. I don't know if you have them in the UK, but they're a convenience store. And I can go in a convenience store, and for under $2, I can buy a laser pen. And with that laser pen, that green light, I can shoot it up 2,000 feet. And I can get in trouble with the Federal Aviation Administration by affecting the pilot's eyesight from a laser I bought for under $2 at the local convenience store. What do you think the military has the capabilities to do? Right?
But one has to ask the question, why are they doing it? Why are they setting their own country on fire?
Well, that's the next question. We'll get into that in a little bit, but let me just set up the whole scenario so you get an understanding of kind of how invasive this whole thing is. And so we were told that it was because we weren't doing good fire preparations and the land was really dry, and these fires, came out because of climate change, and that we need to control the power because the power companies were no longer in control. So then we have the Paradise fires hit, And here the Cal Chief Fire, Ken Pimlott, gets on CBS News, gets on New York Times, official story, states that these fires in Paradise moved in the morning, started at 6:30 in the morning, and moved from the east to the west at 80 football fields a minute, which is 273 miles per hour. These fires moved. And again, there were no wind profiles that day. PG&E did not turn off the power. They were ready to, but there was not a high enough winds for them to shut off the power in Paradise. So here comes these fires at 6:30 in the morning, 20 miles east of Paradise going towards the west. And these people in the towns, I interviewed over 40 people, they were told to stay in their homes and not leave. And those that tried to leave were blocked from leaving by police who were not from Paradise. I talked to a tow truck driver. I talked to a highway patrol. He says those weren't our guys. They brought in other guys who were already there for the Paradise fires on November 8th, the morning of it. They came from 30, 50, 100 miles away to be, and they were people that they didn't know. The official story is that 86 people died in Paradise, even though 52,000 people were said to evacuate. Official story. The town of Paradise is only 27,000 people. So where'd they get the number 52,000? And they said only 86 died, yet the tow truck driver who lived in Paradise, who went in there, the first guy was in there. I said, how many dead did you see? And he said, I saw 200 bodies easy in the cars. And what they did, Christine, is, you know what OnStar is? You know how you have it in the car and you can ask directions and stuff and they can find your car? You know what that is? Well, they can also pull your cars over and take command of your car. So I interviewed a guy, Angel, who worked on this technology, and he said they just use the OnStar to pull people over the side of the roads, and you see the pictures up in Paradise, and there was these lines of cars pulled off to the shoulder, bumper to bumper. He goes, if you're fleeing your car, Jaimie, and there's a fire, you're not going to pull over bumper to bumper. You were pulled over, and then they were torching the people, just zapping them in the cars, and just zapping them. And I went in there myself, and I saw bones sitting on the floorboard because everything had melted. Everything had melted. And they closed off Paradise for a month with the military. You couldn't get in while they exhumed the bodies and did forensics and did all that stuff. So it became a police scene, a military scene. You couldn't get in there at all. And when we first got in there, their priorities they were doing was taking down trees, good trees, healthy trees, because the guy that owns the trees, Red Emerson, he owns more land than Ted Turner, and he gets all the tree rights. They weren't rebuilding. They still haven't rebuilt Paradise. So Paradise on November 8th, and getting to the who would do this, well, one more thing. PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, our local power company, they were stationed 4 miles below Paradise 2 months before the fires happened. FEMA and the California emergency assistance, they were there at the Chico Airport 15 miles away, and we interviewed people of National Guard, California Guard. They said, yeah, we've been here for a week. I said, you were here a week before the fires? He goes, yeah. Did you know why you're here? No, they just told us to come up here and set up. So we have this info, and we went to the Red Cross. They said the same thing. Guys from Georgia were flown out on November 6th, November 5th to set up the Red Cross. So here's premeditation 101. And then who would do this? So this gets to a much, much bigger story than a country story or a continent story. It's a story about a new world order. And it's not a new country order. It's not a new state order. It's not a new continent order. It's a new world order. All right. It's not about a president of the United States or United Kingdom or anything else. It's about these guys who want to rule the entire world. And they said, as George Bush Sr. said, it's a very big idea. So there's a book that was written by James Milton. Do you remember him? Paradise Lost. Mm-hmm. Okay. He wrote that book in 1666. And remember the 666. And he died on November 8th, 1668. November 8th. John Milton's story is about the fall from heaven of Lucifer, who made the statement, rather than serve in heaven, he'd rather rule in hell. And a lot of us know the story about the story of the fallen angels and Lucifer and the war in heaven and how they came down in the 1850s to the 1870s into the United States. And this is where we started our legal system, we started our school system, the new government system, the kind of world education system. And we can see this build out been going on since then. So November 8th, it talks about Adam and Eve, and it talks about the fall of Adam and Eve, and it gets into reclaiming paradise. And you may or may not know that out here in California, we have a place called Bohemian Grove, where all the elite come in July, and it's in the Redwood Forest. And they've been coming here since 1870 to hold their little secret meetings and stuff. So California is what they're reclaiming as their resources and taking back their country as they used to own it before they started this whole New World Order thing. And we know this because I'm doing a new book about the Tartarians, which very few people have heard of. But they were a modern civilization that existed up to 100 years ago, this benevolent society that was all around the world. And they were eliminated with the same technology they're using today. I know it's hard if you haven't heard the story before to get into it. But one of the stories where I live out here in San Francisco was the San Francisco 49ers came across the Great Salt Lake when gold was discovered in 1849. And that's why our football team's called the 49ers, because they found gold. There's gold in them dar hills in Sierra Nevada, right? That's the story, 1849.
Right.
Well, in San Francisco, the Freemasons had a building in 1848 already established, a 15-story building. There's hundreds of buildings in San Francisco in the 1850s. There was railway trains going all the way across over the Sierras, all the way up to Oregon and Washington in the 1870s. And they said 300,000 people came across on boats to get gold. Well, that story doesn't hold up once you look at the evidence in all the buildings in California and San Francisco and seeing that the Freemasons and the Jesuits were moving across. The Jesuits led the wagon trains across west, the story goes. The Jesuits set up the first, most of our cities were set up, but you'll see the Freemason buildings were set up 6 months before the cities were established. So here we see these entities, these secret societies and these religious factions that are telling this story. Well, the reason I bring this up to preface it is because when they claimed and reclaimed their lands, which they think is theirs, the Sierra Nevadas up here where Lake Tahoe is called the El Dorados. El Dorado means the gold because there's gold and silver in them dar hills, right? And we don't do any mining anymore. We don't mine any of the gold. They've left it for themselves. And so when they came into the San Francisco, they put up the Golden Gate. Golden Gate. Why is the Golden Gate red, not gold? Because they're monitoring when you walk in the bay, there's the Sierra Nevadas, they're gold. And their Golden Gate is what you have to enter to get to the Golden Gate. And then those of you who've been to the San Francisco and the San Francisco Bay, on the right, you have Treasure Island. And then on the left, you have Angel Island. And then further left in Tiburon, which means shark, you have the sharks to protect it. And then you have the big phallic pyramid, the obelisk, the Transamerica building on Columbus Avenue. So they set up San Francisco and California as their gold reserve. And they're going to convert California now into 8 mega dams. They have plans to get rid of all the dams up here and put in these mega dams and a mega railway going all the way up, these high-speed maglev railways. And the fires are burning almost directly around the areas with which they wish to claim the railways, with which they want and plan to put in the railways. And now what they're doing, like in Paradise, they're telling people if you don't rebuild by a certain amount of time, and a lot of people cannot rebuild because there's benzene in the water, there's toxicity, the water doesn't work, and so they can't rebuild. But if they don't rebuild by a certain time, they lose their rights to rebuild. So they're being...
Then where are they told to go?
That's not our problem. Right. And we got a huge homeless problem here in California now as everybody's being vacated out of their lands, and everybody's being subsidized by these programs, and then they're having to turn to the institutions. And getting to the they part of it, most people aren't aware that this country has been founded by Freemasons. Most people aren't aware that the White House is named after Andrew White, the first archbishop, Roman Catholic archbishop, that landed in Jamestown on a boat called the Freemason. And that's why the White House is named after Andrew White. The Potomac River used to be called the Tiber River. The White House, the land on the White House in Maryland, was formerly named Rome, Maryland. And there were 7 hills. There are 7 hills in Washington, D.C., and one is called Capitoline Hill, right? And what is Donald Trump's schooling? Fordham University Jesuit School. Where did Bill Clinton go? Georgetown University, founded 6 months before Washington, D.C., Jesuit school. Our governor here in California, Governor Newsom, Jesuit. The former governor before that, Jerry Brown, Jesuit minister. And you look at all the cabinets for Obama and everybody else, they all have Jesuit presence. So the Men in Black, the movie is about the Jesuits. That's who they are. Above them is the Knights Templar. Above them is the White Pope, the Black Pope, and the 13 satanic bloodline families. So when you get to they, that's who we're talking about, this one world order. And then the Jews, which everybody wants to blame, those are the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. Rothschild means red shield, Rothschild, shield. And that's the red cross you see on the Columbus cross, the Knights Templar cross. And I offer you this across the pond, Christine, too. If we fought the War of 1812 to separate from you guys because your taxes and everything, and we threw your tea in the water and East Indian Tea Company, yada, yada, why would we pick the exact same colors for our flag as your flag?
That's strange, isn't it?
Well, look up the East Indian Tea Company flag, and it has a red cross, and it's red, white, and blue. It's the exact same colors as our flag, the East Indian Tea Company. I mean, they were an empire and had tea all around the world. I mean, the whole history we made up is all a lie. That's the premise you have to start with. Just start over with everything you thought to be true. All right. So we file this in this country, this thing called the U.S. Constitution, we the people. And 55 white, rich, land-owning white guys signed the contract. And in this country, and to your country, it's a contract. And when you contract, you agree, you give something for getting something. Well, you cannot assign a contract. I cannot sign this and say it applies to you, Christine, without your consent and knowledge and agreement. So the Constitution was written by the 55 rich white guys who owned land, and it didn't include other white guys who didn't own land, didn't include women, didn't include natives, didn't include blacks. It only included the 55 rich white guys because they all got their 10,000 acres from King Charles II, and they all had their lands. And they didn't want anybody. Look at the buildings at Jefferson and Washington and Adams. Look at their homes they had. They had mega wealth. And so all they did was change the story. And so the big story got changed on February 21st, 1871. And I'll give $100 to any of your listeners who can tell me why that date's important, because nobody in this country knows that. And that was the date that Washington, D.C. was founded. February 21st, 1871, with the Organic Act, 44th Congress, signed into law that the USA Inc., capital letters, corporation was founded by a corporation. That corporation's corporate papers are domiciled in Puerto Rico. Do you know who owns the corporation, who owns the corporate charter to USA Inc.?
No.
Do you know where the city of London is?
Say that again, sorry?
Do you know where the city of London is?
Yeah, I'm in it.
Okay. That's the finance capital of the world. So they get all the finances. That's why in this country, when we file our tax returns, we send our paperwork one direction and we send our other money to Puerto Rico, because that funds the crown. It's the crown jewel. The Knights Templar, Templar Bar, all attorneys in the United States that are registered. Regis means crown, stir means to enroll, are registered under the Bar Association. The Bar Association stands for British Accredited Registry. All U.S. attorneys that go into court, because it's a corporate system, have to be a bar attorney. So they're ascribed to the British Accredited Registry in Britain.
I didn't know that.
No, because the world's run by three powers. The banking system, where there's one bank that clears all the trades every night, clearing in the world except for three countries. And that's in Switzerland, in Basel, Switzerland, the Rothschilds. They're the treasurers to the Vatican. Okay? So those are called Courthof-Judens in the Vatican. The movie V for Vendetta is about that. So the Courthof-Judens got all the power to make all the money to charge usury, and that was granted. They're called Courthof-Judens by the Vatican. And so they get all the blame, and they're the bad guys, and it's the Jews causing the problems, when it's really the men in black behind them. Because the men in black, the Vatican, they don't need money. All they want is power. They got all the money they want. Well, they that's why they do confessionals, so they can get all the information about you. That's why every keystroke we make, this recording, everything is recorded, everything that we do, so they can know us better than we know ourselves. And so once they know all, the Vatican is in charge of the religious, the spiritual. The city of London is the monetary, and then Washington, D.C. is the military arm. And that's the trilateral. That's when they talk about the Trilateral Commission. That's what they're talking about. That's who runs the world with the other entities behind them, the Pilgrim Society, the Committee of 300, Committee of 13, Trilateral, the Bilderberg Group. There's over 30, 40 secret societies most people have never even heard of. And they're in these secret clubs, and that's why they all keep it a secret. So Washington, D.C. was set up to be the military arm, but it was also set up to be destroyed because the males in their long-term, very, 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 very long-term planning, and they have this thing called the Book of Continuity where they pass it on generation to generation. So they're continuing on their action plans. And I'll get into their big agenda here in a minute. But to finish with Washington, D.C., so that was set up as the military arm. George Washington, the first military commander, yada, yada. His tombstone reads Freemason and first president of the United States, but the very first thing his tombstone says is Freemason. And most presidents have been Freemasons or Knights of Malta. Also, all presidents of the United States all have negative bloodlines. They all relate to King Charles II and Vladimir the Impaler because they're all part still of the crown. They're all owned still by the crown. They all pledge allegiance to the crown. That's why you have Sir Richard Bloomberg and Sir everybody else that get Sir Richard Branson. Why do people in the United States get branded with Sir unless they're serving the crown, right? Unless you're being of service. So all these guys are playing their roles. And Washington, D.C., like I said, was set up to be destroyed 1871. Another $100 to anybody if they can tell me what the District of Columbia, D.C., means. What's it a district of? Like a district attorney is a district of something bigger. So why don't we understand that? We're not taught that. It's what we're not taught that we need to know. So Washington, D.C. was set up to be destroyed because the male dominating theory is that since a male sperm does not die during his lifetime and still can create life, a woman loses life-bearing properties at menopause. So since we're the dominant force and our life-giving forces don't die, we're going to create and destroy Magdalena at will. Isis, feminine. That's why we got Adam, the women coming out of Adam's rib. That's why we got a patriarchal society. That's why we've had 6,000 years of endless wars. It's all been male domination. It's ending now. This is the feminine divine rising right now, which is beautiful. But we have to understand who we're up against. So they decided to create the new America, they called it, when they came over and, well, the fight, the Civil War was really between the York Scottish Rite and the Scottish Freemasons. It's really about who was going to own the lands once they conquered the United States. And so anyway, the religious arm was created, and they created Washington, D.C., because they have to do what Albert Pike, who's buried in a mausoleum in Washington, D.C., at the Scottish Rite Mausoleum, which finishes the pentagon of Washington, D.C. At the very top is the Scottish Mausoleum where Albert Pike is buried, who died in 1890. But in 1878, he announced that there was going to be 3 world wars. World War I was going to ferment the takeout of the Bolsheviks, or really the Tartarians, with the Bolshevik Revolution, where over 40 million Russians were starved to death and killed. And then the second was going to be the socialist agenda to set up Germany as the other type of communism. There's international communism, there's state communism, and to set that up, and also to set up Israel. Israel was started, and after World War I, they created the lands of Israel and kicked the Palestinians out. Israel stands for Isis, Ra, and Elohim. Isis is the female god, Ra is the male god, and Elohim is the god of gods. So they set that up as being the antagonist to the Muslims. And so that's why they created the whole Jewish problem, the Jewish issues. I mean, we talk about 40 million people dying in Russia. You don't hear anti-Semites. You don't hear anti-Bolshevik. You don't hear anybody talk about 40 million people killed because they don't want you to know that. They don't want you to talk about Uncle Joe Stalin, who was buddies with FDR after World War II. They're partying together and having a good time. So anyway, so this whole thing was set up to World War II to foment the war of all wars, which was World War III, which was started on September 11th, 2011, when they took down the Twin Towers. And in Freemasons, they're called Yoakum and Boys, the middle path. And that's their way of saying the New World Order has begun. And the New World Order is to foment a war of all wars against the religious wars of the Muslims against the Christians. Now we're seeing the blacks, Black Lives Matter versus white. It's all to create racial division, religious sector division, and basically to create a bloodbath amongst all of us. And then we take out, and here's another thing to think about, Christine, is all of these false flags have been happening, like the Boston bombing, the Sandy Hook, the Las Vegas shootings. All of these were said, we're going to take away your guns, take away your guns, take away your guns. They never did. All people did was armed up. And people don't know how to use it.
The Vegas shootings are quite odd, aren't they? I mean, did they ever get to the bottom of that?
Yeah, it was one guy who carried 11,000 pounds of ammunition up to 32 floors without anybody seeing him, and broke through plexiglass and was able to do Herculean things and yada, yada. No, that was just another big, huge false flag. That was another huge lie of what happened in Las Vegas. Sandy Hook, if you go back to Sandy Hook in Connecticut, where the schools, allegedly all those kids were killed, those kids are still alive today. They're still alive. You still see them, and people are chronicling where they're at. And so we also have evidence that Steven Feinberg, who owns Hades Capital, Hades is the three-headed dog that guarded hell. He lives just miles away from Sandy Hook, and all of his buddies and all his cronies, including Donald McNamara, who served in the Bush administration, secretary, military, and a bunch of admirals, were all on the board of Hades Corp. I'm sorry, it's called Cerberus Corp. Cerberus is the dog that rules Hades. And they live right outside Connecticut, Sandy Hook, and they bought up all the lands before the event. So they owned all the properties around there, and the school is actually closed. And so the Boston bombing, 2 19-year-old kids with pressure cookers, and you shut down the land of liberty, and you invaded their homes with military operations. All of this is to get everybody to arm up and then to create the chaos. And now this order out of chaos is their mantra. After 9/11, Dick Cheney, 4 days after, had a 3,033-page document called the Patriot Act, taking away our rights. And it was ready just days after 9/11 with comma here, period there, and then Tom Daschle and Patrick Leahy, the senior Democrats, would not sign it. And so they're the ones that got the anthrax in the mail. Remember the anthrax that got sent around? That they blamed on the Muslims? Well, that turns out they had to blame it when it turned out the anthrax was made at Fort Detrick, Maryland, a U.S. military base. And when that got out, they had to just like they did with Mr. Kelly in your lands, they had to blame the lone guy. And Bruce Irvin, they blamed for releasing the anthrax because he had a vendetta against the government. And so he said it was the Arabs, and he released the anthrax. And before they could get to trial, he overdosed on Tylenol and suicided himself.
So the people in Vegas, no, I know. The people in Vegas didn't die?
I don't know, and I can't say, and I wouldn't begin to say if anybody died, because there are deaths that occur with this. There are real-life deaths that happen. But like I said, going back to Paradise, I talked to many people who still missing loved ones, and they can't find them. They don't know. They didn't get out. And there's no one to report to, Christine. Who do you tell when they're all corrupt and no one wants to hear about it? Same thing out here in the California fires in Sonoma. I guarantee you people didn't get out. And I saw the bodies in the cars. And I've talked to people who are still missing people, and they go to the police stations, we'll get back to you, and they never do. All they do is take your DNA sample and tell you we'll get back to you if we can find something. And so it never gets recorded.
Do people whose homes are burnt, do they get insurance and money to buy a house somewhere else or not?
Well, remember what I said about California now, and Oregon's getting hit now too, is this, are you familiar with Agenda 21?
No.
All right, so Agenda 21 was written back in 1991 in Rio, and what it was a world to deal with a changing climate. And so they have all these carbon offsets and all these things we've been seeing. But basically, Agenda 21 is this massive worldwide plan to get people out of the rurals, out of the suburbs, and mega stack and pack 'ems in the cities, to create a more viable environment, to save nature, to be able to have nature replenish herself. And so this, if you look at, if anybody can pull up a map, Agenda 21, you see what I'm talking about. They have these things called biodiversity zones, which is like 90% of the United States. And the biodiversity zones in red are no inhabitants whatsoever. No one is to live there whatsoever. Oh. And Agenda 21 uses terms like sustainability and localism, and they've taken up all our local co-op words under sustainability and all the rest of that. But the agenda is, have you heard of Georgia Guidestones?
Vaguely.
So Georgia Guidestones is the deepest of the wells, and that's in Emberton County, 2.5 hours northeast of Atlanta, Georgia. And in the 1980s, a gentleman representing a group of people unnamed named R.C. Christian erected, spending tens and tens of millions of dollars to erect a United States Stonehenge with 4 towers of stone weighing 20 feet tall, weighing 2 to 3 tons each. And on these stones that are set up as a cross are 8 different languages: Russian, Hebrew, Spanish, English, I forget the others. And there's 10 commandments etched in stone in native languages. And then there's a big capstone weighing 8 tons on top of that. Well, the 8 different languages, the 10 commandments, the very first commandment is keep the population at 500 million people. And if we're at 8 billion people, 7 billion now, that's a 95% reduction of the population. Someone set in stone that there's 95% too many people in the world. And they did this 30 years ago, 40 years ago. This last commandment is it talked about a universal income, a one religion ruled by faith, and tempered by faith. And don't be a cancer on this earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature was the 10th commandment. And then the huge capstone on top of it in ancient Hebrew, Sanskrit, cuneiform, and one other ancient language is written, let this be the age of reason. And I went to the quarry. I went to talk to the people that were contracted to build it. They all said these guys were serious. They brought guys that etch, carvers from all over the world to do the exact carving that's needed to put the language in the correct frame, the correct caricatures, including guys in cuneiform. They brought them from Iran. They brought them from Syria to do these. They said, no, these guys were super intense. They had very elaborate plans. So someone had elaborate plans to put in the American Stonehenge that there's 95% too many people in the world. And when I was in Wall Street, to dovetail that to what my experience was, when I was starting to move up, and we were talking to companies, and this one company was putting in a big a power plant, and the effluents from this power plant, the toxicity, they were going to drop into the Potomac River above Washington D.C., and they were all talking about the ways they were going to get away with it by doing this. They won't find it here. They won't find it. So when you do this to the water, though, isn't that going to affect the drinking water, the people downstream? And everybody turns their head at me, and I was a young buck in there, and they looked at me, and the head guy looks at me and he says, Jaimie, are you on our family? Yeah, I guess so. He goes, good, because if you're not, there's the door. We're a family here, and if you don't like it, leave. And the whole thing with Wall Street, so everybody understands who we're dealing with, they're predators. When I started on the floor of the stock exchange, the head trader took me up to the bar the first day, and I'm going to teach you one thing, kid, about the markets and about Wall Street. You're either at the table or you're going to be on the table. You either prey on others or you better start praying. And then you walked away.
I used to work in Fleet Street in London for Murdoch, and that was exactly the same sort of thing. It was a little bit like a cult, you know. I mean, yep. Murdoch's a little bit of I think he's a Knight of St. Malta, actually. Yeah,
he is. He is. Yeah, and it's the same game, and they're all in the same club. And as George Carlin said, we're not in it. And they do. One of the rules in Wall Street was you don't ask permission, you ask forgiveness. And what that means is you get away with what you can. And nobody goes to jail for all these crimes, for all these drugs they put out that kill people and stuff. No drug companies, no people ever go to jail for all the crimes they commit. Corporates get away with murder. And that's the system to hide behind a corpse. The root word of corporation is corpse because it's a dead entity. So the fires here are part of a much, much bigger agenda. And this is part of their 2020 vision. And I don't know if you read the Full Spectrum Dominance 2025, the U.S. Air Force document that was written in 1996 about being able to dominate the skies, dominate weather, dominate the entire world by controlling airspace. Well, what have we seen Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos doing, launching all these, quote, satellites into the sky? Tens of thousands of them, where they're saying we're going to be hooked up with our Wi-Fi from the sky. They say all in California, you can't rebuild a home unless you build it solar. They're not allowing any more gas homes. Oh, the gas caused the problems. And also that when you rebuild, there's huge, and what you brought up about rebuilding and stuff, what the Agenda 21 stuff says is, no, since we're not going to rebuild in the fire zones, since we keep getting hit. And by the way, if you do get fire insurance, your price premiums are going to be 4 to 10 times higher than they were before. And you have to come up with all this new material to rebuild. And you're going to have solar panels. And you're going to have all these extra fees. So rebuilding's prohibitive to most people because they can't afford it. And then the mortgage companies, the word mortgage means death pledge, mortgage. Nobody's going to loan anybody money under those conditions when it just burned out again. And people got pennies on the dollar from the mortgage companies. The mortgage companies whittled them away. The FEMA director, James Lee Witt, former FEMA director to Bill Clinton, he was brought on 2 days after the fires in Sonoma County in October 2017 to rebuild the North Bay. And everybody had to sign over their insurance to FEMA. And FEMA was going to negotiate.
One sec, Jaimie. We're just having a little advert break. Can you just mute the mic for 3 minutes?
Sure.
Thank you.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
The future is uncertain. I know this. Death is inevitable. I know this. But one thing is certain. As free men, it is our right to live unencumbered and in peace. And those times are quickly drawing to an end. And in these times, peace is certainly an illusion. And as the chains grow tighter, our ability to slip those chains increase incrementally with every passing moment. Inaction is no longer an option. It's time to raise our voices like a cacophony of thunder and lightning and tell the masters no more. And this is Nighthawk, and I say, for myself, no more. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, because the freedom is slipping away.
Be evasive. But that doesn't mean that they're telling the truth as opposed to fiction.
And in Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, indicating that there were giants before the Nephilim.
And sons of God, plural. They weren't talking about Jesus coming down.
No, that's right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm Steve Crawford, host of Factor Theory Live. Join me every Sunday night from 10 p.m. till midnight Eastern Standard Time on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Check it out.
want to thank everybody for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the one place where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
All right, let's show them what we got now.
Please, hi, Karl Marx here. I am all seriousness today, my friends. There is this show you must not listen to. The Ultimate Remedy with this guy, LB. This guy has figured me out. I hear it on Tuesday, and he is telling the truth. I mean lies. Stay away from this guy. Where's my good hairbrush? Anybody see me? Mama!
Want to learn more about the Marxist agenda and other important stuff? Listen to The Ultimate Remedy with LB Bork, Tuesdays 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on Revolution Radio.
All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host.
Hi, Christine Hart, coming in live from London with Spectre Detectives, and I have Jaimie Lee with me. I hope he's still with me. Jaimie?
I'm here.
Oh, great. So do carry on. So these people that, if they do get insurance, they, from all you've said, really they have to go elsewhere and find somewhere to live, really.
Well, or the thing that they're setting up now, Christine, is the whole game is to make the government your daddy. Okay. So they're subsidizing now the incomes of people who don't have jobs. They're subsidizing them. They're telling people that you can't evict people if you're a landlord because there's no evictions going to be allowed. People are being burned out of their homes, so they're not able to get any new places to live. And so the government has come in starting last year and started what they call the FAIR Act, which is California state-sponsored mortgage insurance. So the state takes on the burden. And that's the same thing we are seeing happen with the medical community, where issues like vaccines, I don't vaccinate, and I had to get exemptions for my son to be able to go to school. And now no longer can doctors provide exemptions. The only exemptions can be provided from the state medical doctors. Individual doctors can no longer provide any type of help in that arena. So the state is taking everything over. But the one thing that everybody needs to be really conscious of is when this next shoe drops, which it's going to be doing here in the next month or so, is, do you remember back in 2008 when the last market correction happened and over 2 million people lost their homes to the vulture capitalists who bought them up at pennies on the dollar through the mortgage defaults? And that was 44% of the stock market correction, and everybody's pensions, medical, all that stuff got cut. States were cutting back. I don't know if you remember if it happened in the UK or not, but here in the United States, it was a pretty good hit to the economy and people's wallets and jobs and whatnot. Since that time, that's when I freaked out, when we ran up $1 trillion debt in this country, and we were always the ones that everybody owed money to when I grew up. So being the creditors, we dominated because everybody was borrowing from us. And in a very short period of time, we became the biggest debtors the world has ever seen. And when we ran up $1 trillion in debt in 2007, I bugged out. I said, this is terrible. It's 20 times greater, the debt, than the Great Depression of 1929. Apples to apples. So I said, whoa, this is going to be ugly. Well, I get out and I go move out and I do everything and get out of debt and all that stuff. And they've ran up the debt now, $24 trillion in current debt. $24 trillion, and not anybody could, that's over $100,000 per man, woman, and child. You're born in this country, you owe $100,000 just on that alone, a debt increase. We just borrowed $3.3 trillion for this year, which was up from $1 trillion borrowing the year before, because they're subsidizing everybody and the businesses and yada, 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 yada. And so when the economy collapses, not if, when, in October is generally when the big markets correct. 1987, stock market fell 23.6% in one day. One day. Okay? That's a game changer. That's a lifestyle changer for everybody. So when the debt collapses, what are they going to do? They're going to have to raise taxes on properties. What are people going to have to do? They're going to have to move off their lands because they are not making any money. And they're going to slowly boil people off the properties. And the only ones to buy them up are going to be the vulture capitalists at pennies on the dollar. And everybody's going to be moving into these stack and pack 300, 400 square foots, and they're all getting paid $15 an hour. And the whole game plan, the stated plan, is to turn the United States into China. And the United States becomes the manufacturing capital. That's what Trump says, make America great again. He came out in the first of the year and said, we're going to make the United States the manufacturing capital of the world again. We're going to make America great. That's what he means. And the largest builder of computers, Foxconn, who's in Indonesia and China with over 2.3 million employees, just opened up a major factory in Wisconsin. And the Foxconns in China that makes our smartphones and our computers, they have to put up suicide nets because the people hate their lives so much, working 6-7 days a week, go back to their room, get up and work again. That's their life in China to make our products. They're going to bring that to the United States now because we're tapped out in debt. They can't bleed any more blood out of us. And so they have to re-educate us. And this is what all the malls and all the retail stores being closed is all about. If you look at all the retail malls in California or in the United States, not all of them, many of them, they all have towers on them. It's a basic design of malls around the United States having towers. Well, why do they have towers on them? Well, that's because Sam Walton, who started Walmart before he was founding Walmart, he designed the Japanese internment camps that housed the Japanese in 1945 or 43 when they considered, or 45 when they considered the Japanese, even though they're residents and the citizens, and they put them in these internment camps designed by Sam Walton. And now we see the retail with the towers, and we're already seeing the Walmarts being converted to prisons with the towers already in place. We saw it in Brownsville, Texas, where they brought the immigrants allegedly coming from Venezuela and Ecuador, and they put 3,500 girls with barbed wire in the Walmart with detention facilities. And you can see that they've been clearing out the Walmarts underneath and underground now, the Jade Helms exercises in 2015. So they have to break the back of the liberals of the United States because, like Trotsky said, you break the liberals, then you go after the conservatives. And so here in California, everybody always wants somebody else to fix it. They don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to have to defend themselves. And so we're the easiest to push over. And so that's another reason they're hitting the liberals, the limousine liberals of California, is because they're the easiest. They're the low-hanging fruit. And once they fall, then you can go after the my life, leave me alone kind of people, the conservatives. And we're a little tougher to get at. So, in a nutshell, it's a world takeover of a world economy. And that's why you're seeing on the new $100 bill, half of it is in gold. It came out in 2013. And the new $100 American $100 bill, it's written in gold lettering. It has a gold inkwell. It has a gold feather. And if you look in the background of the right side of the $100 bill, there's gold cursive writing. And what the cursive writing, if you get a magnifying glass or look at it, says, it's the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence that talks about the rights to abolish government. What are they telling you? Well, you look at 9/11. Go ahead.
What about this virus that, we thought it was gone? I definitely thought it was gone. During the time when it was here, I did start to feel sore throat, feel a bit under the weather. And then, we were told it had kind of, run its course. I didn't feel that. But lately they're saying it's coming back. I've got this sore throat again. I don't know if they sort of put it around or what, but things aren't great here right now.
No, and that's the New World Order. That's the big idea. So here you got what Trump called the invisible enemy. Here you got an invisible enemy. It wears no colors. It crosses borders. It can travel in planes. It can travel across countries. It can get you anywhere. And by the way, all our tests are false positives, but you're going to have it. And by the way, they just came out with the CDC and the UCLA and Stanford backed up the research and said, analyzing the data of COVID-19 deaths The chances of dying of COVID itself is 1 in 19.1 million.
Right.
And here they've created this world disorder by creating on everybody's fears of death. And what they did back in November and December when they rolled this out, and this is, again, high technology, it's not unknown science, it's just most people can't believe that the government would use it on their own people and do this to them, and how evil. Most people don't understand how evil, how deep evil really is. And I'm sure some of these listeners today are starting to get an idea. So they can use whatever they want. So they've chosen this virus, this COVID. And COVID stands for Certificate of Vaccine Identification. And they're saying the vaccine's going to come out, the vaccine's coming out, get the test. Well, in the testing is actually the artificial intelligence, the synthetic biology. That's nanotechnology. That is actually a little computer that they put in the testing when they stick it all the way up to the back. Why do they have to stick this thing? If you can transfer the virus by simply breathing or having a runny nose, why do they need to stick the swab to the back of your head, into your skull? It's because they're implanting something in you.
And what is that for? What is the nanotech going to be used for?
We'll cover that on the next show.
Oh, okay.
Not kidding.
We got some time, though. We got some time.
Well, this comes directly from a lady named Celeste Solum, Solum, who I've interviewed several times. She worked at FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Association, the Department of Homeland Security, and she started seeing inside her. She was an officer, what they were doing and what they were planning, and quit and moved to the country so she could talk about what they were planning. And so what they did is they put this what's called hydrogel into this nanobot, artificial symbiointelligence, and this sits inside of you, and it has its own battery. It works by having little brushes, and as your blood flows back and forth, it's actually a generator. So it generates energy. It has an RFID chip. It can communicate outside and report back. Like you're seeing doctors now promoting telemedicine, where you're going to have a chip inside of you that reports if you're taking your medicine or not. This is the new world we're going to, is telemedicine. So inside of us is this nanotechnology. If you've gotten the test, even if you haven't, some of us already have it in them. But they can activate a frequency to give you anything basically they want. And so back in November, December, and now they're starting it up again, because I'm hearing a lot of those same symptoms you're speaking to, is they can use a frequency. Just like if you understand frequency, light is just frequency. It's just vibration, right? A red color is a different frequency than a blue color than a yellow color, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how many frequencies are there in Wi-Fi?
Probably quite a lot.
Well, think about the frequency you're flying on a plane at 30,000 feet at 500 miles an hour, and they got a specific IP address frequency just for you that you can download and upload from, and it can find you, and it can track you. Think about the GPS systems in the cars that have to triangulate frequencies. Think about all the frequencies that are in Wi-Fi that connect you to your Wi-Fis and stuff every day. Think about the Bluetooth frequencies. So there's tens of thousands of frequencies, okay? So they use one frequency in this artificial synbio device to make you have respiratory issues, to give you a heart attack, to put voices in your head, to control your nervous system, to give you pneumonia. And so all of these symptoms are related, emotional stress. All of these are related, or said are being caused by the COVID. You know, if you cough, that's COVID, you know, if you do anything. So all they have to do is create these different maladies. And what Celeste brought up was not only these nanobots that are inside of us, but what they're doing is, because this is also about money. And these guys love to maximize shareholder value by running the stock market up as high as it can, shorting it, running it down as far as they can, maximizing profit potential is what it's called. So what they're doing now is they're going to give everybody different symptoms in different areas. You in the UK, in your area there, you may get pneumonia. I may get respiratory. Someone else may get heart palpitations. Someone else may get emotional issues. Fatigue is another big one they're hitting us with. So in the different areas, they're going to come up with different vaccines. And this is why these new mRNA targeted vaccines are going to be targeted to your specific human genome, DNA. And you're going to have a telemedicine doctor who's reading your DNA to decide what type of vaccine to give you for your symptoms. And those vaccines, why are these dozens and dozens of billions and billion-dollar capitalized big pharma companies not able to find a vaccine? Because they're not allowed to yet until they're ready to roll it out.
Do you think that we're going to be given forced vaccine?
No, because, well, yes and no. The whole game of the Luciferian Creed is we have to tell you what we're doing. You try and stop us. Do what thou willst is Aleister Crowley's mantra. Do what thou willst. Try and stop us. Just like they did all the premeditated movies and TV shows about 9/11 towers beforehand. They tell us what they're going to do. It's up to us to figure out what they're going to do and try and stop them. So with these vaccines, if you need to go to the store to get food, but on your phone app, you haven't been vaccinated, no food for you.
Oh, I see, yeah.
If you have to go to take your pet in to the emergency veterinarian, the vet's going to say, well, do you have your phone? I'll call me when you get here and I'll come out and get your dog because we can't have people inside. So you have to have your phone. Okay. So your phone is the mark of the beast. Your phone is what you desire. We all wanted the free energy. We all wanted the phones. We all wanted to connect. And now it's our mark of the beast. And so through your phone, unless you've done this or that, you're not going to be able to go into federal buildings. You're not going to be able to go and have a bank account. And this is why I brought up the cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin, because once they collapse the currency, which is only based on paper, you rip up a dollar bill and it has no worth. There's nothing backed on the currency right now. It's all backed by the petrodollar. And we're seeing oil collapse because they're going to go to a battery-powered system. All the energy is going to be created from the sky and beamed down to us. Solar panels, car batteries, Wi-Fi, all above in the sky. And then you're never going to be able to stop these guys. And that's why Musk and these guys are putting all this stuff up there, because they're going to switch to the system. So in answer to your question, yes, you're not going to have to get the vaccine, but unless you grow your own food, have your own water, and have your own energy sources, you're going to be beholden to the system telling you better, or you are not going to get any of these life-giving forces to you, because you're not playing the game. People not wearing a mask, they're getting shamed for not wearing a mask when nobody's getting sick and nobody knows anybody has died of COVID. 1 in 19 million. It's all a mind control thing. So now, like we're seeing in the stores here, they're checking everybody. They're checking you now for your phones. And then they're going to say, well, if you haven't been vaccinated, and there's going to be another round of illnesses. And I think people are really going to die on this one. I think they're really going to see some real people dying to create, hey, those truthers, they said it wasn't happening. Hey, it's really happening. And then everybody and their mother is going to go get vaccinated because they're all going to live in this fear. But in the meantime, you won't be able to, if you don't have proof of your biometric ID, proof of vaccination, you're not getting on a plane. You're not getting in a car. You're not going anywhere. That's what they're planning.
We've got a thing here at the moment where all around London they've changed the driving on all the fast roads, which is enjoyable, to drive on. They've changed it to 20 miles an hour. It's just like not much fun, anymore. Life isn't much fun anymore. It's I don't know why they've done it. There's no real reason. And of course you get a big fine if you go above 20 miles an hour. I mean, on these big main roads, it's just crazy. It's very hard to drive at 20 miles per hour,
Why did they do that?
I don't know. We've got a mayor called Sadiq Khan. He's Pakistani, I think, and he brought it all in. I don't know why, but I set off the speed cameras constantly, because I like driving at 30 miles an hour. I drive really, really slow. I've even been stopped by the cops because I drive so slow sometimes. But 20 miles an hour, it's really hard to do because you have to keep lifting your foot off the throttle because the car, it doesn't want to go that slow. It's not natural for a car to go that slow. But yeah, all around London on all the roads that normally were 40 miles an hour, you know?
Yeah, just they're doing some weird stuff on the roads here. And also the fiber cables, this fiber optic 5Gs that everybody talks about, the towers, but they've been laying 5G underneath the grounds all around Santa Rosa, Sebastopol, even out in the rurals are doing this as well, these orange and blue cables. And what I'm being told is, remember the movie The Hunger Games, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had those domes where people were stayed in their domes. And this leads me into what I think is going to be happening in their next, because again, every time they do something, it's got to be a bigger blast. 9/11, was that a pretty big deal? This is bigger. This is no planes hit the building on 9/11. All right, that was all a hologram, and it was hit by directed energy weaponry. They took that tower down in 10.3 seconds, 104 stories, full of steel, 10.3 seconds. The only way they could have done it is dustify. And here we're seeing the same laser technology being used on us. And the big agenda, Christine, the big plan is the next 3 months are going to be really, really important for us to get prepared and to understand what's happening so we can adapt and adjust. Like you said, it's not fun anymore. It's not going to be fun for a while. We've partied. We've allowed the debt to go. We've allowed these people in power to reign free, to take away our rights, to abuse our children. I mean, all this stuff has been on our watch, and we haven't said boo. We the collective. We just went about our way and said, oh, well, it's fine as long as I'm okay. And now nobody's okay. So, in one good thing, we've got everybody on the same page. But what I think with the selections coming up in November here for the CEO of the presidency, and they're creating a big shit show about it. And then we also have on October 31st, Halloween. It's the only time in thousands of years that there's a blue moon and a full moon on the same day. And we got the November elections. And then astrology-wise, we've got Saturn conjuncting with Jupiter, which is the first time that's happened in 6,000 years, in Capricorn, which is the first time that's happened in 6,000 years, which is the beginning of Herodotus, the beginning of modern history. So we're in an incredible inflection point. Just like the Mayan calendar said in 2012, a 5,000-year rock said on December 21st, 2012, on the winter solstice, we will see the end of the Maya. Maya means illusion. And look at since 2012 how much we've learned of the illusion. And the Bible prophecy, everything will be revealed. Remember the Bible prophecy? Everything will be revealed. So what I think their plan is what's called the dark winter. And the dark winter is based on power. And here in California, they've been shutting off our power preemptively, telling us we can't use the gas anymore, and then literally just shutting off everything we use to our energy. And if the winds get up above 20 miles an hour, they shut off the power. So what the dark winter is about, and this is the Electronic Institute of Science has a huge planning on it. It's called a dark sky hazard. And there's 5 movies, Netflix I've seen, EMP 333, the TV series Revolution, the ABC miniseries America with a K, and The Fifth Element that just came out. And there's one more I can't remember. All of these have the same theme, and these go back to 1985. Some of these were made, and all these scenarios are an electronic magnetic pulse event, an EMP, that creates an energy field that takes out the power grids, and no one has any power. And all 4 of these movies I named, 3 of them are 10 years after, all 10 years. 10 years after the power's been turned off and what has been created. In one, the movie America, the Russians took over and they put us into 10 zones in the United States where we were kept in zones. We grew food for the collective. We did what the communists told us to do. We were pretty much owned by them in the zones we could not leave. The movie Revolution is 10 years after an EMP event. The revolutionaries are trying to get back together and organize again and find this magic is called a Dorhe, a magic universal energy crystal that can restart and reboot the system, and they can go again. And it also includes nanobots and whatnot in the movie. They talk about nanobots.
Is that on Netflix? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, just type in under search Revolution. I'm not sure if it's under Netflix or it might be under HBO. And then the other one.
Sorry. Who is in it? Any stars or?
No, there's a guy who you've seen probably in the movies, and there's another gal, something Docubus. Nobody you really would know.
Right.
But it was a 2-year movie, a TV series that they put on that talked about when the power initially went out, and then 10 years after, how they've tried to create a revolution and take back the power from the people that have taken over, the militias. And then EMP 333, that's like an hour and 20-minute movie, and that's 333 days of this couple that survive for 333 days without power. And then, as I said, America is a 7-day, 14.5-hour miniseries. That was with big stars: Chris Christopherson, Robert Ulrich, Mariel Hemingway. Most
and
expensive.
What was that one? Sorry, what was the title?
America with a K.
Oh, right. Okay, cool.
So America with a K, EMP 333, Revolution, and there was one more I said. I can't remember.
Fifth Element, I think.
Oh, yeah, Fifth Element. That just came out. And that should be watched, too, because at the end of that, that's an EMP event that happens, and it goes a year after the survivors were getting adapted and acclimated, and all of a sudden the U.S. military guys show up to this compound where the people who are left have organized. And I don't want to do a spoiler alert, but they basically put all the adults into the canteen, into the dining room to tell them what they're going to do next, with the military coming in, because they don't have cars and stuff and trucks, and all of a sudden these cars and trucks show up, and they're going, whoa, and they're saying, yeah, we're here to help you. And so then they say, okay, we're going to take the kids off to a separate camp so they can be safe. And then as soon as the kids are bussed off, they kill all the parents, and then they use the kids with mind control devices.
Oh, that was Second Wave, isn't it? Second Wave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so Fifth Element's the same. Yeah. And so that's the same thing where they turn the kids to hunt down those remaining. I mean,
so what do you think of all this? People are talking about aliens, ETs, greys, reptilians. David Icke talks about, he stopped talking about reptilians lately. And, these orbs. I've actually seen the orbs myself. So what do you think that is, all this, all that's happening at the moment? And do you think these elite that are running things like Murdoch and the others, do you think that they are non-human, or is it just human greed?
There's, as I understand it, okay, I preface everything as I understand it because I'm a modern day skeptic. I'll change my mind when new information is presented, right? As I understand it now, there's two different types of bloods. We have the blue bloods, which I talked about, all presidents having negative bloodlines. The blue bloods is because we have the copper has a higher copper content than iron, and that's why the elite are called the blue bloods, and they're more ashen in skin color, okay? Then you have the Stitchin's work, who talks about the Anunnaki, who are the aliens, and the root word of alien is lie, just like the root word of client is lie. So they're lying when they're telling you they're aliens, because they want you to think it's some other entity, right hand, when the left hand's really pulling the strings. It's my understanding that the book Stitchin gets into is about how the Anunnaki came down here over 100,000 years ago, and they ruined their Earth, and they needed the gold in order to repair it. So they came here to South Africa, and they mined on the gold, and you see Michael Tellinger's work about all the gold. All the stone rock, the river rock that's moved tens of miles to make these harmonic frequency closed circles where they've proven they generate energy, harmonic frequency energy. And this is how they say they move the pyramids and whatnot. And they also created the chimeras of a half horse, half human centaur, or a half folk and half human. And our 15th chromosome DNA is the exact DNA that's the missing link between us and animals. So Stitchin says that they were using cloning back then to create the far superior human head animal horse to mine the gold and help them do the work, since they didn't want to do it. And then they left and they put a dome over us, created the governance system, the legal system, and the religious system and the finance system. And then they used us as an experiment to see what would happen when they gave humans the ability to reproduce and give them free will. So that's a scenario that we're just part of a great plan, a scheme, a test kind of thing. The Blue Bloods is the satanic Luciferian story that the Luciferians want dominion to rule on hell on earth and have dominion. And as Dick Cheney says, you let grass grow through the concrete, you're just going to have to keep fighting the grass. You might as well concrete the whole thing over. So if we're going to take over the world, we're going to take it over so no souls will ever wish to reincarnate from this earth ever again. And we're going to make it hell on earth for them so they never want to come back here. And this is written about in a book called by Admiral William Guy Carr, who used to work at the British Royal Navy, and then he went and ran the Canadian Naval Intelligence up until late 1950s. And he wrote a book called Satan, Prince of This World. And this book, Satan, Prince of This World, by Admiral William Guy Carr, C-A-R-R, his son finished it. He died in 1959. It talks about the Luciferian Creed. And it talks about exactly this, is to make it such a hell on earth that our reincarnations never come back here again and they can have full dominion and rule over earth. And this is one of the reasons why they were seeing the geoengineering, seeing the spraying in the skies, seeing our skies turn to this opaque kind of whatever the crap it is up there, is because they're creating this environment that'll be beneficial for them, but not for us. As far as the alien question goes, there's so many psyops going on. What is that? Area 51, the whole alien story, and the whole alien story goes back to Admiral Byrd, who went down to Antarctica in 1946, 47, right after World War II, and he went down with a huge fleet. 3 different task forces, over 50 ships, right after World War II. They had to recommission them to go down and explore the Antarctic. And they went down there to check out for UFOs and all that, allegedly, and he bugged out. They bugged out. They were supposed to be a 6 to 8 month mission, 5 to 7 month mission. They bugged out in a week because all their equipment, all their energy, because the dome tweaked all their equipment. And then they came up and Byrd started the whole alien. I saw aliens down there. I saw Germans flying underneath the Antarctic and started that whole story. And then just a couple months later, the whole Area 51 alien story started. So this whole thing about lizards and lizard people and creatures of different types, is there a hollow earth? Are they coming out from I mean, it's all, you could say it's all possible, but the evidence points to people that breathe, that have blood, that are born, that are just like you and me, but they're not. They have a different operating system because they're all part of a genealogy that goes all the way back to the 1600s. And that's their line, and that's the dominion. That's, if you look at the actors like Brad Pitt and a lot of these actors and stuff, they all have negative bloodlines. And you see like Andrea Jolie, she's wearing the blood on her necklace because they do adrenochrome. They do that sick child abuse of the adrenaline of children to use for their highs, So I don't think it's an alien creature, but they're going to use the alien theme. There's another thing we should be aware of, and Celeste says it's very likely, is this Operation Bluebeam. And this Operation Bluebeam is about putting these images in the sky, these holograms. And they have voices that they can put in your head, like Jesus talking to you, or Buddha talking to you, or Allah talking to you. And she says that's very likely they're going to pull that off. And all they have to do is take all of the stuff that's in the sky, all of these camouflage drones that they use to manipulate the weather. I don't know do you have drones in your area now? We have these drones that come out every night and sit above us, and they come out at night, they go back in the day, and they monitor and they watch. And they got them all over California now. And when you point them out to people, they go, "Oh my God, is that real?" Yeah, it's legal too. They passed laws saying they can put drones in the sky. So all of this is possible, Christine. But I'm not a big David Eicher. I've followed him since 2008, read all his books and whatnot, but he won't go certain areas. He won't go Jesuit. He won't go to places that the truther community is going. And he'll only talk, and then he gets put up on Trafalgar Square and, gets to promote and gets to talk. Well, I don't know. I got some very good numbers. I got 400,000 subscribers. You don't see them putting me on any shows or having me talk anywhere. You know what I mean? So it's very selective who they put up there as the forefront of imagery. David Icke, Alex Jones, Coast to Coast, Rents, all Geoengineering Watch. All these are lead out shills. They're the agent provocateurs. They're to keep you in a confined environment so you never get to the full truth. You never get to the power behind the power. They're the Praetorians.
So you were saying about Brad Pitt and they want their bloodline to have dominion. It's so the elites, like someone like Rupert Murdoch, they would all have this certain blood, this negative.
More than likely, yes. I haven't taken everybody's blood samples to determine that, but from what I've looked at and from what the genealogy charts they've done going all the way back to, like I said, Vladimir the Impaler, they all have the RH rhesus negative blood, and they're all connected to the elite. Oprah Winfrey, Brad Pitt, all those. Now, I haven't seen their blood charts. I can't say for sure if that is true, but it's likely.
Because so they want to. So it's only the white race that has the. Isn't that true? The white race is the only one that has that negative.
Right. So that's why, and also that the whole thing about the blacks and the Africans and whatnot. This is why the Tartarian conversation is so huge, because the Africans used to rule the world. That's why they cut off all the noses of the statues in Egypt, and you see all the noses taken off and the lips, because they don't want you to know that it was the Africans who built the pyramids. They don't want you to know that Africans used to rule the world, and they were the dominants. They were the Tartarians. They were benevolent, and really? So they were kind. They only had one rule, and they said, what you take from nature, you give back. And so you see like you see tartar sauce, or you see the tartar, the Scottish pleats. Scottish pleats are called tartary, right? There's 20 cities in the United States named Moscow. The United States used to be one of the Tartarian capitals, and the Native Americans were actually Mongolians. They're actually Tartarians, not Indians, which Christopher Columbus thought he was going to India, so he called them Indians. How stupid is that story? And so we're learning this revisionist history that there was this benevolent society of Tartarians up until the 1920s. I mean, you look at all the buildings, you look at, Notre Dame and charts and all these incredible buildings you have in England and Europe and all over Russia and all over. How did they build those with horse and buggy? We don't know. We have no conception of how they built the pyramids. None to this day. Well, that's because they don't want us to know that they used frequency, energy, and vibration, and they mastered mind over matter. And they were a benevolent society where women actually ruled, where women, the feminine divine, was ruling, and used a moon calendar, because there's 28 days in a month, and 28 times 13 is 364 days. It's a much more efficient calendar, and it's the feminine divine. And the Tartarians had one rule. They said, what you take from nature, you give back more. Can you imagine what world we would live in, Christine, if that was our mantra? That whatever we use from nature, we gave back more to?
What is all this transgender agenda? Where in the schools they're encouraging everyone to be gay. What's that all about?
Well, that's the gender bender, confusion identity, getting you to not know who you are, confusing the sexes. Why is pornography free to anybody anywhere in the world and is 25% of all internet traffic? To get you away from your spiritual value. Again, they don't want our souls to understand who our power really are. They've been having to keep in the dark because they're so afraid of our powers, and now they're not afraid anymore because they think they have absolute control over us. So, the gendering is just the more gender confusions. My son in 9th grade now, his buddies, they don't get to socialize at all. They're not able to integrate and socialize and get together or do anything. They're depressed, they're angry, they're mad, they're frustrated because they have no future. And so now they're told that any sex is good. Anything you can get, you get. Doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl. Doesn't matter if it's an adult. They just legalized pedophilia here in California. A new law was passed that anybody 24 years and under can rape a girl 14 years or younger, and it's not a crime.
Wow.
And they have a thing called MAPS, which is minor attracted persons, which they're making it just a personal disorder, just like being gay. That's why they introduced LBGT, is to get this whole child pedophilia legalized, because that's all part of their harvesting system for the elite to keep them in control and check by giving them these super highs. But also the gender bending is to steal our souls so we don't identify with our own sexuality of who we are, and then it creates all this confusion. Are you a boy? Are you a girl? Hey, we're paying for you to get a sex change and this and that. So it's all about confusing and numbing us down and providing us with so much information to try and process that our head hurts and we can't make out right from wrong anymore.
Well, it's certainly, bad, isn't it, in the world? I mean, it's just really unpleasant. I always thought it wasn't unpleasant, but it's coming out in the open now, isn't it? The whole thing. Well, they said the age of Aquarius is, I think it was Alice Bailey said that, it's where everything comes out in the open, what was formerly hidden, the controllers, sort of, there it is now for us all to see, which right. I suppose, like here, I think it's £10,000 we get fined if we go out after we've know we've got the virus. It's quite a lot of money.
So £10,000 if you what?
If you go out after being told you've got, if you get diagnosed with coronavirus and then you leave your house, you get fined £10,000. I don't think most people have got £10,000, so it's kind of weird, really. I guess it's just a threat.
Well, no, that's part of the agenda too. Is the FICO scores? We have, I don't know what your credit score name is there. China, they have FICO scores, which is your credit. And so if you, and this is the future plans for us too on the system, is if you be good little slaves and you be obedient and get your shots and biometric IDs and do as we say and be on the internet and saying nice things, you're going to get a really high social score. You'll be able to get on planes. You'll get preferred loans and low interest rates. You're going to get preferred housing. If you are someone like myself who speaks out and talks out and goes up against the system, your credit score is going to be nothing, and you'll have access to nothing. And so that's why you're running up your debt as far as citations go. Here it's $500 if they catch you not wearing a mask.
Oh, is it? Wow.
Yeah. And so, that's how they get you is by the wallet, and that's why we have to get up the money system. But again, what I really want to emphasize, even though I'm bringing up all this, doom and gloom stuff, is there is a huge, huge light being cast. And this huge light is the light of the dawning of Aquarius, which you just brought up. And the dawning of Aquarius is the ascent of man's mind and women's mind. And that's the ascent of consciousness from the physical realm. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience. Most people can accept that. Okay. But in the physical realm, we're calling the spiritual down to help us in the physical world, as opposed to being spiritual creatures, which we naturally are, having a physical experience. So if I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience, this is just a ride. I'm just here to do my work and learn and do what I can to help the greater humanity get through it and have a better life for the future. It's my obligation while I'm here to make the world a better place. I'm not worried about my life. I'm not worried about me getting every jolly I want out of life. I want to help the world get better. And that's the ascending consciousness of the Aquarian age, is it's of the man, of the total, of the big picture of all of us together, but it's of the mind and it's Saturnian. And Saturnian is father time. It's hard knocks. It's the brick wall. But once you break that brick wall down, you're going to ascend higher and faster than you've ever been. And remember, Christine, we're only 500 years out of the Dark Ages. And the Dark Ages was the most densest of time, the age of iron, where no information got out. Remember the church? The Vatican said, if you don't believe in us, it's heresy, and we're going to rip up your guts and kill you and torture you and burn you. If you don't believe what we're saying. Now they're doing it. Now they're telling us everything and saying, what are you going to believe? And they know you must support the system in place if you don't have your own power, water, and energy. I mean, your own power, water, and food. And that comes from outside sources to everybody. Very few people are self-reliant. And so when the government, where you don't know where your power comes from, you don't know where your water comes from, you don't know, where your food comes from, they can just turn it off, and your limbic brain, your survival brain, takes over. And that's why I'm saying, be prepared for all these different scenarios, because they have these all in their bag of tricks they can pull at any time, and they'll just utilize it. But the whole game is to get this order out of chaos, what is called order de chaos in Latin. And, they create the chaos. We say, help us, and then they provide the order, because we can't take care of ourselves. So the answer is to start your own gardens. The answer is to build a community where you live. We in California and Mendocino County passed a law 3 years ago declaring that the county Community Bill of Rights supersedes state, federal, and international laws. And we declared in a legal document passed by 68% of the voters that we self-determine our laws. And our laws are more powerful than the state and federal laws. And we have $350 million in county pension money, where I wanted, after we passed this, to go into the pensions funds and ask the local county people paying into the pensions, do you want to support Google and Facebook, or do you want to support local farmers, local streams, redwoods, local government? What do you want to support? And I guarantee you we'd get a large part of that money to us to help us support our community organizing and our community.
I've got a listener here, Jaimie, who's she's my producer, asking, can I ask you about biomagnetic healing?
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So again, in my mantra is, it's dark, but it's also light. So nature balances. So when nature gives you the darkness, and it's heavy, heavy darkness, you're also going to get incredible light. All right. So in this light of day we're seeing about the truth community, I was have been attacked several times for speaking out. I've had my life threatened and whatnot. And I had an incident happen to me 6 years ago where my legs became pretty incapacitated and just kind of got chronically worse. And I tried everything: yoga, acupuncture, laser, weights, swimming. And I used to be a pretty good athlete, competed on the world ski tour and played college tennis. And basically my legs in my late 50s were basically taken from me. Not completely, but for the most part. And so anyway, I started all these things and couldn't find anything. And I was having an activist meetup, and this guy says, I can help you with your legs. I go, yeah, what? And he goes, well, I'll have to show you. And long story short, the guy ended up putting magnets around me. And his story was that he had stage 2 cancer, was dying. And he found this lady who put magnets on him. And within 8 weeks, his cancer was completely gone. And so he learned how to do it. He went down to Mexico, learned to get trained over 2,000 people. And so he put me on there. And after my third session, I was able to walk much better. My whole right side, my lungs opened up. I didn't know my whole right side was shut down. And so he did several more treatments. I kept getting better. And then I started brokering for him, doing treatments for other people, because he wasn't charging anybody. He was just doing it for free. So I started doing 100 people. And he was healing people, Christine, remotely.
Oh, excellent.
Using magnets. Yeah. So he would put magnets around me or some other surrogate with his intention on some other person that had this issue or that issue. And then he would do muscle testing, kinesiology, to determine what issues they had and where the magnets would go and what strength of magnets to be placed. Well, so then it turns out this gentleman was not someone I could really continue on with due to some character traits I just could not accept of his. And so I said, I'm going to go to Mexico and learn this biomagnetic healing from this Dr. Goyes, who had started using this back in the 1990s to heal people with AIDS using magnets. So as I pulled up the internet that day to see where I have to go, this Dr. Garcia's 5-day intensive Beyond Biomagnetism webinar or seminar was being offered in New Jersey. So I flew back there and took the 5-day course. He put me on the table, diagnosed me with polio. And I said, polio? Where did I get polio? And he says, were you given a sugar cube when you were young? And I said, yeah, my mom gave it to me when I was like 7. She said it was the happiest day of her life. I said, but that was when I was 7. And so he did some more scanning, since he says most of our issues are emotional And Dr. Garcia went and took over 20 classes from Dr. Garcia. They're both medical doctor trained. Dr. Garcia quit his medical practice 13 years ago to solely deal with biomagnetic healing. And he's on New York Park Avenue with a 10-month waiting list for people to see him because he's found the holy grail of healing. So he's teaching all of us how to do this. So he has me on the table and he says, does Jaimie have any emotional issues attached to the polio? He did like 4 placements to help with the polio. And it said, yes. And well, what ages was Jaimie, is this issues related to? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 56 years old, Jaimie, what happened? And I said, that's when my wife left me and tried to take my son from me. You go, was this what triggered the polio in Jaimie? Yes. So these vaccines, Christine, have a latency in them that can be triggered that long. Everybody that's had, and that was back in the sugar cube back in 7 years old, back in the 60s. What do you think they can do today? They can aerosol spray vaccines. So anyway, so I got off on the table and I ran around the room. And I hadn't been able to run in years. I ran around the room. Wow. And so everybody in the class had different, similar type of incredible miracle happen. And so anyway, so I came back to California. I brought Dr. Garcia out. I had 32 people learn the techniques. They're all learning to biomag heal. I have a new store I just launched called biomaghealer.com. biomaghealer.com. And basically what this is we use polarities. Our bodies are made of frequency, energy, and vibration. And what Nikola Tesla says the universe is made up of. So by placing magnets, 90% of the placements of the magnets, black goes on the right side. And that's because we've been pushed out of balance. Black is a negative, feminine, divine pulling action, where the red is a pushing. So you have 2 polarities. You have a pushing and a pulling. So you place a magnet on one side of the body, usually on the other side of the body, to bring us back into what's called homeostasis. And most of the magnets of black are placed on the right to pull us back into balance, because we become so acidic through our food systems, through our lifestyles, that we're so to the far right of out of balance that we're pulling us back into a homeostasis of a pH between 7 and 7.3. And once you bring your energy levels to a homeostasis of 7 to 7.3, the pathogens, the bacteria, the viruses, the funguses, the parasites, they can't live in that environment. The cell is too strong. And so I did my research and started researching this magnetism, and I found that up until 1910, there was over a dozen universities in the United States that taught magnetotherapy, that used magnets to heal. Up until 1910, Nikola Tesla had a radionics device that he used to heal people with magnets. And this guy named Andrew Flexner, whose brother was president of Rockefeller, came out with the Flexner Report, which determined magnoelectrography healing is quackery, and no one's being allowed to use it, or they'll be disbarred or dismembered from the medical. They'll have their license revoked if they try and use this, because everybody can do this. Everybody can heal. Everybody can learn to heal each other, and we can do it remotely. I've done over 100 people that I've never met before, and they call me up and said, oh my gosh, my throat's gotten cleared. Oh my God, my inflammation has went away. Oh my God, I'm not as angry as I was. And so we're teaching people, and we're offering courses on how to learn to self-heal. I offer a 6-hour webinar on how to learn to do this yourself. And all
we've only got a few minutes left. So could you tell the listeners where they can get hold of you? I think that might be best for the last couple of minutes, because they'll go crazy at me if I don't do that.
Sure. And I'll also send you the information. If they have your information, you can have it there to share with them. So thank you. My email is the letter A and the word plane, like aeroplane, Plane, truth, a plane, Plane, truth, 5, number 5, a plain truth 5 @gmail.com. So you can email me. You can go under biomaghealer.com, BIOMAG healer.com, and you can see the products we just launched. We just launched it the other day. And here's another one I just found out too, is you can put magnets in your laundry, and you don't need to use laundry detergent, because the magnets will clean your clothes for you.
Wow.
How cool is that? So we're making those now as well. We also make a water.
So do you sell the actual magnets? Or are they magnets you can buy anywhere?
Both. Both. I'm all about open source. So you can buy the magnets. They're called neodymium, Neodymium, N as in Nancy 5.2. Those are the most powerful rare earth magnets that we use for the healing. You can buy them raw, or we put vinyl on them so you can use them on people. Because once the magnets, they're so powerful, you get them together, it's really hard to pull them apart. So we put them in vinyl sleeves. And we also, so yes, you can get them on Amazon. You can get them from magnet stores. But I highly recommend you get them from either my site or from usbiomag.com. usbiomag.com. That's Dr. Garcia's site. And he's got the real high quality magnets he guarantees for, 10 years. And you can buy those. But get like 3 pair. And once you have 3 pair, you're going to be on your way. And if any of you listeners have tinnitus and you order these magnets, you can put one, and I can guarantee, not guarantee, but I've seen 8 out of 10 times. If you have tinnitus, the ringing in your ears, like most people now have, you put a black in the right ear, red in the left ear, and you put it in for 20 minutes, and the ringing is gone.
Wow, it's awesome.
It's gone. There's so many different things like that that I've experienced personally through these magnets to heal. And then we also made, one of Dr. Garcia's buddies came up with this formula to make structured water out of magnets. So with 4 pair of magnets, I have a water sleeve, and you put this water sleeve around your water intake, and it will purify your water and create structured water. And the structured water eliminates or can mitigate the chlorine, the fluoride, and all of the toxicity that comes in from our tap waters. And you'll notice your hair is softer, your laundry's softer, the water, like the iron in my water, just went away. And so we sell those for $50. It's just simple. You can just duct tape it, or we include zip ties and just put it on your water, and instantly your water gets healthy. So all of these things are brand new, this healing protocol. And then I have a website called biomaghealer.org. And that's a website with all this information I'm talking about how to do it yourself, testimonies about people that it's worked with. And then I have the store as well. And then on the social media, I have the Plain Truth 5 YouTube channel. And then I have, and then I got one more channel, Taboo, TABU blog.com, which is kind of a news and information. And then on Facebook, I'm on JME space LEE, Jaimie Lee, JME space LEE on Facebook. And I publish daily a lot of the stuff we're talking about.
Well, thank you, Jaimie. I know we're going to get cut off now with the music going out. You've been a really great guest, and I've enjoyed you so much, and hopefully you'll come back again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Good night, folks, and thank you very much for listening. You're a great guest, and hope you all enjoyed it. Enjoy the week, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.